Hello, this is the Goodly Christian Witch. This video is about the magic of hats. And you know that what really defines a witch is her hat and the cone shape that it has and the wide brim. And that's because it's actually the shape dictates what kind of consciousness you're hooking up to, okay? And the hat for the witch is more like a sort of a cone shape or a pyramid, and that's a shape that has something to do with it's more like a cone, more like a triangle than a pyramid, because it doesn't have flat sides. So we're going to stick to the number 3, okay? And the number 3 kabbalistically has to do with the Sephira of Binah, and it has to do with the planet Saturn. So it's Saturn frequency and the goddess Hecate and all the Saturnine gods and goddesses and all of the Saturnine creatures and elementals and that kind of thing. Now, understand that it's the space in the hat that gives you your magic. It's the space in the womb that gives you the ability to create your child. It's the space in the hat that gives you the ability to create an idea, okay? And the brim is the rings of Saturn. And the cone is a tall cone. The tall cone is the tallness and very high knowledge. The ziggurat, the very high knowledge of the ancient Babylonian and the ziggurat and all that, because Saturn's a very far away planet, and the rings of Saturn and the cone and the triangular shape, 3, Binah, and it's revelation and concealment. Revelation and concealment, okay? These are the things that go with Saturn. And Saturn, you can use the color black, or you can use the color like a crimson, okay? The black color is more of a receptive color, and the crimson more of a projective color. And you know the Saturn symbol for Saturn looks like a sickle, okay? And we have the images of Saturn. We have Kronos and Father Time, and we have, you know, Binah is seen as a feminine principle and the womb, okay? So it probably a goddess was in there first, and they probably changed her name and gave a man that position somewhere down the line when they got rid of all the goddesses and stuck gods in their place. Because it's funny, like it's Hades for Greeks, but for the underworld, but for, you know, as like the head cheese in the underworld. But like Hecate doesn't have such a big part of it. But you know, I mean, she's very, very, very important, and they say she bosses Hades around. Nevertheless, he's supposedly of a higher status than she. But understand that in the pagan Viking pagan, the goddess Hel, she's still in control there. And so, you know, the sun, we get the word sun from, that's a goddess, okay? Sonne, that's a goddess of the sun. And it's a goddess that rules over the underworld. So they didn't forget their matriarchy. They didn't really get affected so much when the matriarchy turned into a patriarchy, okay? And it's not to say one is better than the other, but let's just understand that, you know, mom and dad should work together. Then the kids aren't being, you know, split into different potentialities, okay? The kids are, if you want your kids to be very on track, and you need the mother and the father to both be on the same path and the same track, so that the kid is on that one path, okay? So anyway, Saturn is all about discipline and law, and witchcraft, it's about having fun, but it really, there's a lot of things you got to do, rituals you need to do, and these rituals really help because they take that energy, that chaotic energy that could become anything in the void, in the empty space in the hat. And of course, you know, babies come out of spaces and places and vessels, and it's the space that's the magic, okay? And you can read that in the Tao Te Ching, okay? And what you have is you have the field of all potential, the collective unconscious, where dreams come from. And the rituals act as the shape. See how tall the hat is? The shape of the hat. The rituals act as the shape of the hat. Okay? And they help you shape your creativity and shape where the energy is coming from. Because if it's very tall, it's going to come from a very high source, far away source, a lofty source, rather than if it's, but it's also, the witches has also very broad, so it has a very broad physical effect. It's very potent. Witches hats are very potent indeed. Okay? And they say every now and then you got to put it on to remind them who you are. So I put it on to remind you of my status as a goodly Christian witch. I never meant to be the goodly Christian witch. I was always just a witch in covens, and I always, many times, I would either be one of the people that contributed, or I became the high priestess, because it just seems to be easy for me to do that for some reason. But I never pushed Christianity on anybody. It just was my upbringing, that's all. Catholic, and then I became a Christian, yada, yada, yada. But I never tried to push that on anybody. I just placed the Catholic saints and Mary and Joseph and Jesus and all those people in their respective Kabbalistic slots, I just tried to find a place for everybody and thought they can all get along. Mithra and Jesus can get along. Their sun gods, fine. They can all get along. But, you never know. But I became a goodly Christian witch because that Christian thing was being stirred up again at a certain point. And I realized that it wasn't going to go away. So I just did it on my own. I don't really, I don't push that on anybody. I share it with people. But I was always the witch that had annoying, that had annoying Christian things, because every now and then I'd mention the Christian deities and where they fit in the Kabbalistic tree. I wasn't telling them they were better than anybody. I was just showing them how all religions are the same and we should all get along, because it's all the same thing. We're just changing the names. But Jesus is just a form of, hey, Zeus. It's all just, really. It's all just, you're better off if you stick with what your blood ancestors were, because that's where your magic will be the strongest. Most of my blood is Italian, which is why I still, 3/4 of me Italian, half of that is Sicilian, half of the Italian is Sicilian, but there's 1/4 of me that's Welsh. My mother told me Scottish, my father told me Welsh. My father's father was the guy that was, so I'll believe Welsh, I guess. But anywho, the reason I had so much of that Catholic stuff coming is because of the Roman Catholic Church, which preserves a lot of the Roman religion. Okay? And a lot of the Roman holidays, unbeknownst, So I've been getting lately really caught up in studying the Roman festivals that my blood resonates to it. And that's why the Catholic Church resonates, because it's a very similar thing. Now, the Welsh part of me, though, is very strong. And that's where the witch comes in. And that's where the pagan magic comes in. That's where my love for all the other pagan pantheons comes in, for all of the Celtic, Gaelic, Celtic, all of that, and even some of the Greek gods and goddesses. So I am just taking all the different blood that's in my body, the Welsh and the Italian, Sicilian, and Welsh, and having it get along, and trying to form it in a way that my brain can understand. And I did study the Bible a lot. I have a minor in Bible, actually. I went to a Bible college, and that's a magical book. And it's, Hebrews, Hebrew, male witchery, male witchcraft. It's a very magical book, and it's very powerful, so you better understand it. And I'm trying to help witches who don't understand it so they can use it for their benefit if they want to, or know how to protect themselves from bad things coming at them from people that are using the Bible, Old and New Testament, to try to hurt witches. I'm telling witches how they can protect themselves and how they can actually use it to go back and protect themselves, or how they can not let it affect them. Like in Aikido, I studied Aikido for a while. Instead of getting in the way and fighting with something, which I tend to do, so I have no room to talk. But in Aikido, you step out of the way and you just help whatever they're doing. You help them go wherever they're going, and they go right into the wall, not into you. You just help them a little bit, or don't even touch them. Just get out of the way and just go like that. You don't even touch them, and they go. That's where they're going to go anyway. So they're very attracted to witches. And according to the Talmud, really, a lot of rabbis think that wrote about the commentaries about the Talmud said that really all women are witches. And in the Talmud, really, they say we're all in the same boat. No, we're not, because the rabbis got in one boat and they put the witches in another boat, and they're separated. Okay, so just understand that it's not a bad thing. I mean, because there's a lot of magic in the Talmud, and a lot of magic in the Sephira Yetzirah, and a lot of magic in the Bible, and in the Old and the New Testament. And the rabbis actually, as far as I'm concerned, a female rabbi would probably be someone that might be considered a very powerful witch. But, you know, a witch is just someone who has powers. And it's like, it's the empty space that gives the power, the creativity, and everything around it is just a shape. And think about it. The only good explanation I've ever heard for what happens at death or when you die is from female rabbis who said that, and they didn't want me to say who they were because they're shyer than other people. But anyway, they're shyer than the men who don't mind you mentioning their name. But the female rabbi said that basically this body is like the placenta, okay? And your soul, or your spiritual body, or the spiritual vessel you're trying to create, you understand what I mean, is like the baby, okay? And when this body's done, the placenta's done, then the tunnel, the light, that's the birth canal. You come out into your new vessel, your new body. And really, it's all of the world around us, everything you consider not self, that is your next body, which is why you got to be good to what you consider not self, because that's your next body. Because you feel an emptiness when you do for others instead of yourself. That emptiness is the womb. And the space around it is everybody else's druthers, what they want you to do. And just being in the center of that and trying to be still in it. And to understand that, I realized, because I worked in neonatal intensive care, I worked as a nurse in labor and delivery too. I'm an RN, but I've been a psychic for a long time, but I used to work as a nurse. But basically what I'm trying to say is I realized when I studied as a nurse, the baby's lungs aren't formed, and when it's in the womb, okay, and has no understanding of what a lung is, or that vessel is, or the emptiness. It doesn't even have the emptiness because it doesn't know it's there. It's being fed through the umbilical cord, and the oxygenation is coming to the blood through here. It's not coming in the lungs. So that whole system's not set up till it's born, and then it kicks in like all at once. It's this wild, thing, and the cord's cut, and the baby takes a breath and cries, and yeah, and there you go. And because all of a sudden it feels these lungs it never knew it had. It takes a breath, and there's a substance it never knew it needed. And don't we say that breath is the most important part of this life? Yes, we do. And in your spiritual body, that won't be the case. It's a vessel that is, the emptiness is when you do for others, the intention of doing for others. And the sides of the vessel are the laws that govern how you deal with other people, and the relationships. The relationships are the walls of the vessel. Okay, but remember, these are not clay pots and what are they called? Crock pot, not crock pots. A lung is a very magical, alive thing, and your spiritual body is even more alive than that. Okay, so it's not like going back to a crock pot. It's going into something even more magical than your lungs and your physical body. And in the Bible, they say Moses is like a placenta. So, because all of the gods of Egypt represent certain DNA, and all of the people in the Bible, you know, like Miriam and Moses and those people, all represent parts of the body. Okay? So when you understand that, death is a birth, and you're just as unaware of the vessel over there as you were of lungs when you were in a babe, when you were in your womb, in the mother's womb. Okay? And in your womb, you had in your mother's womb, you had all your needs met, so you weren't really conscious. But it's when your needs aren't completely met that you're conscious. And like the first breath is just amazing, right? And the first bite of a sandwich is amazing, right? So it's like that. It's mathematical equations of what creates complete happiness. What is nature creating for us? Complete happiness. How much hunger and how much food makes the creature completely happy all the time. That's what nature is working out in you and each person. But remember, it's everything in the monad, self and not self. Everything is actually self. But whatever you consider not self, it's your relationship to that is your body, your spiritual body in the world to come. Okay, we'll see you soon.